Hello, my name is Andy and I am the Village Idiot. I'm armed with a car and a GoPro and an unhealthy amount of time on my hands. I'm using that time to attempt to visit every civil parish in England. You're watching the Hambleton series. This is a district of North Yorkshire that stretches from York all the way up to Teesside. There's 176 to cover in this one, so let's check one of them out. Hello everybody, welcome back to Hambleton. Now, question for you, what's the channel's favourite railway line? That's right, it's the East Coast Main Line. And the East Coast Main Line, you can see down there. I'm on a bridge over the East Coast Main Line here in this part of Hambleton. Now, look very closely at the line and particularly at the side of it. You can see there's a sign just there on the side of the railway line. There's one on either side, actually. There's one there and there's one over on this side, and both of them say Edinburgh 200 miles. Edinburgh 200 miles, which is very close to the midway point between London and Edinburgh on the East Coast Main Line. It's not quite the midway point, because the midway point is at Linton on Ouse, which is not far up the line. It's that way as we look at the line north, and there's a special marker there that tells you you're halfway between London and Edinburgh, but you're pretty close right here, aren't you? And I think that's quite cool. I noticed it as I came down this road to head towards today's parish, today's village, which is what I'm about to do. There's a train coming actually, so I'll just hang fire a second. This is going to be a long intro. Here comes the train. And he's 200 miles from Edinburgh right now, assuming he is going as far as Edinburgh. You never know, some trains on the East Coast Main Line don't. Right, anyway, let's get to today's parish, because I'm waffling on. I'm not even sure if this bridge is even in today's parish. There's not a lot that is, to be quite honest with you. It's a really tiny one. It's called Overton. Here's my disclaimer for people who may be watching me for the first time. I say things as I would in my native accent and dialect. As a result, I may not pronounce things in the same way as the locals do. Remember, I'm a visitor. It's impossible to know everything. Leave me a comment, spin me a like, and bash that subscribe button. Let's get to today's parish video. Is this episode a sign of things to come? It might be. Hambleton is full of villages just like Overton, which is so small you blink and you miss them. This is almost the same as Beningbrough village like we saw last week, a short linear affair with sporadic houses and farms along its length. It's so small that I even had to slow right down whilst driving through it to do this intro, just to make sure you weren't just seeing the expanse of open farmland that lies beyond it. Overton is about 4 miles west of York, and the nearest large settlement is Skelton, just over the district boundary. The channel's favourite railway line, the East Coast Main Line, runs right through the parish and crosses the main village road twice. Overton was mentioned 3 times in the Domesday Book as Ovreton. It literally means Overtown or Upper Town. Historically, the manor belonged to Earl Morcar, who at the time of the Norman invasion had a hall in the village. This hall eventually became the country seat of the abbots from York's St Mary's Abbey. It was demolished sometime in the 18th century, and there are still some earthworks which indicate where it once may have stood. Overton would soon come into the hands of the Bourchier family of Beningbrough, and then the Dorneys, who followed them. After the estate was sold off, Overton became pretty much what it is today, a small farming community right on the edge of York. So it's a small one, let's have a wander through it. And if you think filming the intro was difficult, let me tell you, it was no picnic trying to find a place to park, because this particular village is on a road, as I'm sure you saw from the intro, that's so narrow and has absolutely nowhere to park the car. I eventually went for sort of half on the grass verge over there, which is what another car has done just a bit beyond me. But yeah, really nowhere to park here. So right, it's a short walk. We'll start at one end and we'll work our way to the other. Our walk will simply take us from one end of the village to the other along Overton Road. The lane we're on is flanked by a collection of houses and farms. A lot of the cottages here are quite old. Overton isn't a place that's been flooded with new builds, and that means it's retained its rural character. Some of them are more modern, like this one for example. As you can probably tell, this is the point where the heavens started to open. I quickly realised that Overton is the sort of place which doesn't offer much in the way of shelter from the rain. Out here, you're very exposed to the elements. There are no basic amenities here like a shop or a post office or even a school. For those, Overton relies on nearby Skelton and Shipton. It does though have its own postbox, which you can see right here. I guess that even out in these more remote parts of the country, people still need to send letters every once in a while. Okay, I'm about halfway down the road, and as you can see, the heavens have absolutely opened. Now, I will carry on if it stops, but if it carries on like this, I'll probably have to go back to the car and just abandon the rest of it. To be honest with you, I don't think I'm missing a great deal, and the car did record, you know, pretty much everything, didn't it? I had to slow down, remember? So, yeah, just one thing though, just before I do move on. You can see here I'm sort of hiding under this tree to try and keep dry. There is a parish notice board there, which I will put a card on if I can get this GoPro to stand straight, which I can. And look to the side of the board, you can see a sign pointing you down a footpath. That says, believe it or not, byway open to all traffic, which is what we know, byways are open to all traffic. However, if you can get a car down here, then I'll give you £1,000,000. There is no way on earth a car will go down there. Not a chance in hell. Right, let's put a card on this board, if I can. Not the easiest thing to do. Oh, there we go. Overton is officially done. Now, let's see if this rain stops. The rain continued to belt down, but I persevered onwards, knowing I still hadn't captured the village's most important landmark. Until the 18th century, Overton had a hall which became the country seat of the abbots of St Mary's Abbey in York. Whilst the hall wasn't a religious building, Overton once had a church of its own. It was dedicated to St Cuthbert and was built by the Dorney family in 1855 on the site of a much older church. It's now gone, but its former vicarage is still here. And no, it's not this house, because that is Overton Manor. These houses, though, stand close to one final landmark. In the garden of one of them, you come across the base of a limestone cross. Known as the Overton Cross, this dates back to the 15th century. After this, the road runs off into the countryside and towards Skelton. All I had to do now was run back to the car. Literally. When was the last time you saw me run? We're done with the walk and now I'm running to get back to the car. I'm already sopping wet, so it's not going to make much difference, to be honest with you, but I'd rather be out of the rain. I've got one more thing to film here, and that's a bridge, so we'll drive down to that and then that'll be the parish of Overton complete. Okay, I've opted to do this in the car because, as you can see, it is still absolutely leathering it down. In front of us here is the East Coast main line, and here at this bridge it crosses the road, which I'm going to use to leave Overton behind. I'm going to drive through it instead of filming it from outside because the rain is just still coming down so hard, it's unbelievable. there's some signs on this road actually that say road liable to flooding. Well, if it's going to rain as hard as this, I'll be surprised if it doesn't flood somewhere. I've been okay up to now though, nothing's flooded just yet. So anyway, we're going to drive through this bridge and drive out of Overton, and that is Overton complete. Another one down in Hambleton. So here we go, through the bridge. It's quite a long bridge, as you can see. It's more like a little tunnel actually. And there you go, the East Coast Main Line is above us. And that's it. This road leads then out of Overton and towards Skelton in York, and that's my ticket home. So I've been Andy, also known as the Village Idiot, and this has been the parish of Overton, and I'm out.